Peter, with 3 minutes to go, are all members present yet?
Not quite. I think we're missing David Andrews and Jonathan Kay.
Sorry.
Otherwise, yes. And Stan Bull, who's supposed to be subbing, so it's 3 down.
Okay, just before we go live to the public, can I just say to members in particular that we've had quite a lot of late reps. So just make sure that you're alive to the late reps, please. Hello, Jonathan. Hi. Evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
So is it still Peter? Is it still David and Stan?
And David Andrews is here now. It's just
Hello.
Stan Bull.
Okay. Hi, David.
Okay, Chair, 7 o'clock, we are live streaming, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. And first and foremost, good evening to anybody who's kind enough and taken the trouble to watch us on YouTube. It's always appreciated. But otherwise, many thanks and good evening to everybody that I'm seeing on the screen. Regular members of this committee, and indeed, if there are any regular viewers, will know that these days we always begin with a coronavirus announcement that explains the basis upon which this meeting is being conducted virtually. And the notice is as follows. The local authorities and police and crime panels, coronavirus flexibility of local authority and police and crime panel meetings, England and Wales, Regulations 2020, came into force on Saturday, 4th April 2020, to enable councils to hold remote committee meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic period. This was to ensure local authorities could conduct business during this current public health emergency. This meeting of the Development Management Committee is being held remotely under these regulations via the Zoom application and is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. So that's why we're doing this by the magic of Zoom. What I'm now going to do, again, very largely for the benefit of anyone viewing in on YouTube, is just to run you through the faces on the screen. Broadly, there are 3 categories of people on the screen. There are the members of the committee, that's the councillors, and it's only the members of the committee who get to vote tonight and make the decisions. We also have with us another member, that's, I'll introduce her now, that's Councillor Jan Goodeve, who is the portfolio holder for the portfolio in which planning sits. And then we have officers, and I'll get to those in a minute as I introduce people. So firstly, I'm just going to let the members of the committee just give everybody a wave so they can be recognised. And I'm just taking the names as they appear on the papers. So firstly, Councillor David Andrews.
Thank you and good evening, Chairman and colleagues. I'm David Andrews. I represent the ward of Thunderidge and Standon.
Thank you, David. Councillor Terence Beckett. Thank you, Terence. Councillor Ruth Buckmaster. Thank you, Ruth. Councillor Ben Crystal. Thanks, Ben. Councillor Rishi Fernando can't be with us tonight and is being substituted by Councillor Stan Bull.
Well, I don't think Councillor Bull's managed to join us, so
We don't think Councillor Bull's managed to make a connection. Well, we'll see how that goes, Peter. Keep you posted on that. If he can join before we discuss substantive business, then he's in. But if he's too late for that, he misses out. Councillor Jonathan Kay.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi. Councillor Ian Kemp. Thanks, Ian. Councillor Tim Page. Hopefully going to give us a wave, Tim. Well done. Thank you. Councillor Carolyn Redfern. Thank you, Carolyn. Councillor Peter Ruffles. Thank you, Peter. And Councillor Tony Stowe. Thank you, Tony. Tony is the vice chairman of this committee. And my name is Bob Deering and I'm the chairman of the committee. And then moving into officers, simply as I see them on the screen, I think we have, is it Will Troop up in the top left corner who's hosting the show this evening? Thank you very much. Then moving across, Peter Mannings.
evening.
Fiona Dunning, who is the planning case officer for the primary application that we're dealing with this evening. Sarah Saunders, who's the head of planning. That's a nice cheery wave, Sarah. Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, Paul Courtine, who's the legal officer. Thank you very much, Paul.
I think Paul had some audio issues, but can you hear us now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. Good. Okay. So well done. So we know, just turn back to the agenda. Item 1 is apologies. I think in effect we've done that, haven't we, Peter? It's just Rishi Fernando who can't make it, and hopefully Stan will make a connection in the near future. Item 2 is chairman's announcements. Unless any officer would like to remind me, I don't believe we have any chairman's announcements. Sarah's shaking her head. Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. If anybody has an interest to declare, now is the moment. Thank you very much indeed. Item 4, minutes of the meeting of the 31st of March. Unless there are any comments, I would invite a proposer and a seconder, please. Peter Ruffles is proposing. And Ben
Happy to propose, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, David. I just saw Councillor Ruffles' hand first and Councillor Crystal's second. So they're going to take the proposing and seconding slots. All those in favour, please show a hand.
Thank you, Julian. That's fine.
I'm showing that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That was item 4, and that gets us to item 5, which it would be fair to say is the main business of the evening. And specifically item 5A. 5A begins at page 11 of the pack and is application 320-1563 FUL. This is in relation to the proposed erection of 68 dwellings, including affordable housing, and associated parking, landscaping, open space and ancillary works with alterations to the existing access point on Mangrove Road and the creation of a new access on Mangrove Road at land west of Mangrove Road. Where is Fiona? Yes, thank you very much. Fiona Dunning is the case officer, so I'll ask Fiona to introduce this item for us, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can have the have the additional representations to draw members' attention to, and they are published on Council's website as well, if anyone listening would like to review those. There have been 4 additional submissions provided in the last couple of days in relation to the application. the main issues, and in addition to that, there were some photos submitted by an objector and a markup of computer graphic images, which I will show members of the committee shortly. So just briefly with the additional representation summary, in relation to the computer graphic images, the attenuation pond, concern about that and the elevations, the attenuation pond and its appearance in the green finger, and my responses on the right hand side of the additional representation summary. I've gone into a little bit of detail in relation to point 3 because policy CFLR2 wasn't specifically mentioned in the officer report. So I have addressed that for members in there. And also I talk about the Hartford Civic Society's 2004 publication of the Green Fingers, which is one of the reasons why the site is identified in addition to Greenbelt as Green Finger. So that provides a little bit of background information and an assessment of the attenuation pond in relation to those documents. And then going down to item 4, one of the objectors said that the master plan's been updated, and I've just highlighted that the master plan has only provided a wider area, so members who weren't able to attend the site and are not familiar with the area are aware of where the main objectives are in Queen's Road and then to the north and south of the site. So that is why the master plan was updated, but nothing changed on the master plan. And then there was a late email received from a resident of Mangrove Drive. I think he sent it to a number of councillors, and he was hoping he would be able to speak tonight, but unfortunately he wasn't able to. And his main objection is the attenuation pond, which is located in the Green Finger to the west of the development site. And he was concerned about the slope of the land, and he considered that the area should be left as a nature reserve for biodiversity, because he did say that there was a lot of biodiversity on the site itself before the trees were removed in March this year. And the officer report does go into detail about the trees being removed in accordance with the tree application that was submitted. The resident was also concerned about the height of the fence around the attenuation basin, and he considered that the area should be left similar to Ashbourne Gardens wildlife site at the rear of Ashbourne Gardens development, and left as a wildlife area rather than for people to visit and use as amenity space. And then just before committee started tonight, there was another email received from residents in Queen's Road stating that they are the owners of the land where Colour Homes wish to drain into the stream, if that's the method of drainage that they're going to undertake. But this has already been dealt with by Carla, and is one of the reasons why the application has been delayed, because they were looking at alternative areas to drain into the stream. So I can say that the plans were amended the residents of Queen's Road were informed of the amendments, and they may not have picked up that the red line boundary has changed, and the correct owner was notified of that change. In addition to the comments received from residents, I've also proposed an additional condition in relation to the existing fencing on the site and the separation between the development site and most of the green finger, and proposing that existing chain wire fence remain in place. And that's a proposed condition. And also, I just wanted to highlight, members may pick up that the sustainability SPD hasn't been addressed in the assessment of the application. And the reason for this is due to the application being submitted in August last year, well before the SPD on sustainability was adopted. So it can't be applied retrospectively. Having said that, there are a number of sustainability measures proposed as part of the application. And then finally, the landscaping on the western side of the attenuation basin, I've proposed that condition 15 have an additional sub paragraph that addresses if the drainage scheme is to the attenuation, is to the stream, then there will be some excavation required. And it's just addressing that as part of the landscape and ecological management plan. And then finally, the Section 106 monitoring fee wasn't included in the Section 106 heads of terms. And I think that's about £2,500. And a proposal for condition 16, and that relates to the Highway Authority requirement for the traffic calming measures to the south of the site, south of Oaks Grove, and it's proposed to include reference to the speed indicator device to be included in that gateway feature. So I will just go to the presentation now, if I could. So this is the site outlined in red, and you'll see there's on the western side of the site where there's the red line boundary has a bit of a wiggle. That's where the new adjoining or the landowner has been notified. So originally the plan was including land to the north of that kink, but it has been amended accordingly. So I'm quite confident that the correct landowners have been notified of the proposal. So basically there's a line, a straight line on the western side of the site, which is an indication of where the chain fence is located. That doesn't show where the green belt or green figure commences, and probably the next slide would help in showing that. So you'll see a line of trees there, the beech trees to the west of the development area. This is the master plan adopted in January last year. So the line of trees are beech trees. They're quite mature trees, and they're part of the green finger. And then to the right of those, there's sort of a triangular space that is also part of the green finger. So the green finger goes up to the proposed roadway of the development itself, and that's shown in the master plan. What's also shown in the master plan is the green dotted line to the left-hand side of the site, to the west of the site. That green dotted line was proposed to be for pedestrians. And during the course of the application, the assessment of the application and visiting the site, and also looking at the comments received from residents, it was considered that the site wasn't necessarily appropriate to have a number of people walking down the fairly steep slope towards the watercourse and then going around that area, because similar to the land west of Ashbourne Gardens, it's quite a landscaped area and it's well used by wildlife, and it was considered that in terms of biodiversity, it would be better to keep that fairly separate to the other development. And there are a number of amenity spaces on the site, as well as to the east of the site at Falls Pond, where residents and visitors could use, rather than using that wildlife area of the green finger. And it also means that the fence that's in place at the moment would be a good barrier for the protection of that area. And then to the west of the existing fence is the line of beech trees, and then to the right of those, to the east of those, is on the master plan it was shown as a grassed area, but during discussions with the applicant and some residents, it was considered that it would be more appropriate to have that area clearly defined as the boundary of the development site. So further in the presentation, I'll show you some landscape plans which include some native trees as well as a holly hedge. And there's a proposed condition in relation to that holly hedge that requires it to be fairly substantial when it's planted. And for those members who visited the site on Monday, you would have noticed there was a lot of holly growing underneath the existing beech trees, as well as other landscaping like hedging and stuff. So that's proposed to be retained as much as possible. But as it was pointed out on the site visit, some of the beech trees do need some dead wooding and some arboricultural treatment. And then to the south, this is still the master plan, to the south of the site, adjacent to Mangrove Drive, is the retained trees and the proposed children's play space, and it's the stars sort of indicate where the play equipment is on the master plan, and the proposed site plan has it in a similar area. And while that landscape strip is mixed with the play equipment, it still provides a good connection for a wildlife corridor leading from Balls Pond Park to Balls Park to the west of the site. If we can move to the next slide. So I just wanted to point out a few things on this is the master plan or the proposed site plan, which is one of the residents considered that it had been amended, but it hadn't been amended. It had just been enlarged so that more properties could be viewed when looking at the site itself. So members have a wider understanding of the area. Some of the, if I start in the top part of the site where the apartment building is located on the northern boundary adjacent to Ashbourne Gardens, some of the residents raised concerns about the location of the proposed dwellings on the northern side of the site and the car parking of the apartment building, which is close to residential properties, and one of the residents has outdoor seating area. So this was looked at, and the existing trees that you can see at the top of the site on the adjoining property, and they're to be retained and ensured that they are protected during construction. But immediately adjacent to the outdoor seating area, it was originally proposed to be a car parking space, and it's been amended so that it's now a landscape area. And there's also a 1.8 metre high timber fence along that boundary. So the residents of that dwelling shouldn't be impacted by car fumes, which they were concerned about. They were also concerned about the distance between the dwellings and their dwelling, and the distance is between 17 and 21 metres. So in terms of planning and impact on privacy, it was considered that there was suitable separation between the dwellings, and the garage is the closest buildings to those dwellings on the northern boundary, and all of the garages are single story. Some of the other concerns by residents, and they're set out in the officer report. I think it's paragraph 6. So they were mainly to do with traffic, because Mangrove Road is quite narrow, but I should point out that there are double yellow lines along that part of the site. There's a lot of through traffic because there is a camping ground just to the south of the site, to the southeast, and there's also the school to the northeast of the site. So there's a lot of traffic that do use Mangrove Road. The Highways Authority haven't raised any objections to the proposal or the proposed 2 access points. They have requested that the sight lines be improved for vehicles leaving the property, and they've also proposed some improvements in Mangrove Road that I mentioned previously, the gateway just to the south of Oaks Grove, and then a crossing for the school further to the north, and then on Hagsdale Road, some bollard replacements are part of the Highway Authority request. They've also requested a travel plan, and there are a number of conditions in the report addressing highways and traffic. Another concern of residents was the density of the development, because it's 68 dwellings altogether, and the Hart 5 planning policy refers to 50. that 50 as members will be aware isn't a cap on the development. It's merely an indication of the number of dwellings that could be achieved on the site, and it's subject to a number of constraints. So around 50 dwellings, it's considered that 68 is consistent with this approach that has been taken. I mentioned amenity on the northern part of the site. The residents to the south of the site on Mangrove Drive raise concern about the play equipment for children being located along that corridor close to their properties. There is a road in between that it's a private road, but it does separate the site from the dwellings to the south of the site. And also the play equipment will be for young children, and it's separated along that area. So there won't be a large number of people in one particular area. It will be spread out along that boundary. And it was considered that that was a good space for the play equipment. There's an existing boundary fence to the south, so that it would be controlled use of those play equipment. The other area of concern for residents was wildlife and biodiversity. I think that the number of trees proposed to be retained is supported, and the tree removal and retention has been addressed as part of the tree assessment. And in addition to that, the impact on the greenbelt and green finger has been addressed in the officer report, and also the water use and disposal. And there's proposed conditions included in the report, as well as in the update sheet, all of those issues that I raised. Okay, if we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. This is a topography map showing the site in relation to the stream, which is the dark green area. The yellow oval area is indicating the attenuation pond. And then to the right-hand side of the pond, is the proposed residential area for the 68 dwellings. And then to the left of the dark green space is the Queen's Road development. So the top of the existing ground level of the pond location is between 61 and 64 meters, and the top of the proposed pond is 64.5 meters. And I've also highlighted in this slide the ground level of Queen's Road and the ground level of the proposed development. The reason I have included that the Queen's Road ground level was mainly due to residents of Queen's Road highlighting that the pond would be very visible from their property, and a number of residents provided photos of the site from their property, as well as mark up on the plans and CGIs that I had. And it was difficult to work out from their plans exactly where they had taken the photo from and whether or not it had there had been a zoom lens on their camera, because there were some obscure angles and appearances. So that's why I have included that, just so that members are aware that the site more or less goes up and down with the stream in the dark green area. So just, I guess, from this slide, the most important thing I would highlight is that the ground level of Queen's Road is 64 meters, and the top of the proposed pond is 64.5 meters. So they're roughly, the ground levels are roughly the same. If we move to the next set of slides, this is photos taken from a Queen's Road property. As I mentioned before, I don't know if the people taking these, who took these photos, used any kind of zoom lens or where they were taken from. So I don't have any information on that, but I did say that I would include these in the presentation. So they've been taken from a Queen's Road property looking east, southeast. The top right-hand photo, you can see one of the dwellings of Mangrove Drive, and you can see that in the bottom one as well, and a little bit on the left-hand side photo. If we can move to the next slide. These photos I took myself, so I can tell you where I've taken them, and that I took them with my iPhone. So this was taken just inside, the top left-hand photo was taken just inside the fence. So on the western side of the fence, and it's looking at the properties in Queen's Road, and those properties from the edge of the Attenuation Pond is approximately 100 meters. So from where this photo was taken, it's probably about 160 meters. The right-hand side top photo is similar, and this area is where the proposed pond is to be constructed. The bottom left-hand photo shows the existing fence and one of the beech trees that's located to the west of the fence. So this area would be proposed to remain accessible to the public because it wouldn't be fenced off completely. So it would sit between the existing wire fence and the development itself, where the proposed holly hedge and tree planting is located. The bottom right-hand photo is looking southeast of the site, and it shows, you can see there's a red area, that's one of the dwellings located in Mangrove Drive. And photo was taken more or less standing within the proposed attenuation pond. If we move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this photo on the left is a computer graphic image provided by the applicant, and it's of the southwest view of the proposed attenuation pond. And you'll see, if you look at the right-hand side, one of the objectors or residents has highlighted where that's located, because it was a bit difficult to see on the left-hand side. I can't, sorry, I'm just having a look, because it's difficult to see the top of the pond there, but it's roughly accurate, this blue line. I think there's a few areas that I would dispute, but I think in terms of the appearance of the pond, you can see that if you look at the left-hand CGI, you can see that the pond wall is proposed here. That's the western pond wall here. It will be landscaped similar to how it's appearing here. Not exactly the same, because this isn't the site, but it indicates what the pond will look like in terms of the proposed western wall and the southern wall. This is a cross section, so it's going this way of the pond, and the highest part of the pond is 6.5 meters. Sorry, 60, sorry, I beg your pardon. Um, 64.5 meters, and it's about approximately 1.5 meters above the existing ground level. And you'll see that if you look at the cross section on the plan at the bottom, you can see that the top of the pond wall and then the bottom, and the pink line shows the existing ground level. So that's the cross section. And then if we move to the next slide, we can see maybe the next one. Okay, was there one, sorry, was there one in between a slide? No, okay, it must be the next one. Okay, if we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so you see at the bottom of this, of the screen, the long section. So that's going from, if you look at the left-hand CGI, that long section is going from that where the fence is located all the way down to the southern boundary of the pond. And it remains the height of previously, the 64.5 meters. Okay, and the right-hand photograph, I just wanted to point out because some of the, there was some concerns raised in relation to the fencing of the pond, but I wanted to point out that the fencing is similar to other fencing within the green finger. So there's a consistent approach to that fencing. I know that the green finger document by the Civic Society does recommend tree planting, but the fencing is required because the pond is a biodiversity pond and therefore will be have water in it all year round, and it needs to have a fence around it as part of that. Okay, if we can move to the next slide. There were some concerns in relation to the attenuation pond and the drainage to the stream and the impact that would have on the existing landscape. That plan shows the proposed drainage down to the stream, and that the blue shaded area is where the head wall would be, and therefore it would flatten out in that location there, so that any water that is released is slowed down when it gets near to the stream, so that the disposal of water doesn't create any erosion of the stream. And as members are aware, there is an alternative to drainage to the stream, and that is to use Thames Water sewer, which is on Mangrove Road. And so the pond would remain as proposed, but the water would be pumped to the street through the site. I also, while I have the pond diagram in front of me, I think some residents and some members have queried whether it would be possible to have an alternative to the pond, and of course it would be possible, but this is what's proposed as part of the application, and it meets the hierarchy of biodiversity and water drainage. So that's one of the reasons why it's supported. And also a pond is consistent with Greenbelt policy in terms of it doesn't impact on the openness, and it is an accepted form of development within Greenbelt. If we can move to the next slide.
Fiona, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can we just go back 2 slides, just so that we know? One more, please. Sorry, that one.
Oh yes, sorry, I forgot about.
Just so we know what we're meant to be taking.
Yes, sorry. This is from submitted by a resident, and I can't really comment on the top left-hand one because it appears that it has been taken with a zoom lens, and I can't really comment on the accuracy of that. I think that I can't comment because I don't know where it was taken, and the CGIs that have been presented by the developer have included a survey plan, site survey plan, so I could check the accuracy of the CGIs, and that's why I've provided an extract of the survey plan at the bottom of this screen. And then the slope, once again, I don't agree with the slope that's shown on that. It doesn't really make sense to me because there's no reference with that, whereas the survey plan at the bottom clearly shows that further down the slope it is steeper, but up the top, at the eastern part of the area where the pond is proposed to be, it's fairly flat. And I think when we went on site on Monday, some of the members on the site visit did mention how flat that site was at the top of the site, and how it slopes fairly steeply down to the stream.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but just so that all members are fully aware, what's the point that the resident concerned is trying to make with these 2 pictures?
I think they're trying to show that that the pond will will be, well, they've said it, as a comment that it will be an eyesore in a beautiful area, but the attenuation pond is proposed to be constructed. Obviously, when it's being constructed, it will be create a bit of disturbance, but it's proposed to be landscaped, fully landscaped, so grassed, as it is shown in some of the CGIs. And that would be controlled by condition for the landscape and environmental management plan.
The picture on the right, what's
I think it's trying to show how steep the slope is, but as I mentioned, there's no sort of reference to which part of the land it's referring to, and I don't necessarily agree with it. If you look at the bottom extract of the topography map or survey, you can see that when the lines are further apart, it means that it's fairly flat, and when they're close together, it means that it's steep. So it's not until, if you look in sort of the middle of the area where the pond is not proposed to be located, you can see that the lines are closer together, so it's steeper in that part. But as I mentioned, the attenuation pond is proposed to be in the flatter part of the site. So the difference between the existing ground level, the lowest point of the existing ground level, and the highest point of the pond is approximately 1.5 meters.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so this is the landscape plan, which shows mainly highlighting the attenuation pond, which is proposed to be landscaped around the pond and to have permanent water in it. It's proposed to have additional planting to the east of it, as well as the additional planting and of trees and the holly hedge, which is the dark green line adjacent to the east of the beech trees. So, which is to the west of the development. I hope that makes sense to members. So at the end of the development, where the proposed access is for the 5 dwellings, there's a dark line which shows the holly hedge, and then there's proposed tree planting in between that holly hedge. Okay, if sorry, if you can just go back to that slide. So the dark green trees are the proposed trees on the site. So you can see that there are additional trees planted on the site, and most of the trees fronting Mangrove Road are proposed to be retained, as well as the southern boundary trees and the beech trees and associated in that line of trees. So if we move to the next slide. So this is just a perspective of the development looking from the eastern side of Mangrove Road. So you have 4 dwellings at the front of the site. These dwellings have their own access onto Mangrove Road. And then to the north of that, the main access into the site is provided where the apartment building is located at the front of the site, where their car parking is provided behind the building. So when you're walking past the site, that it's not mainly car parking that you will see. The apartment building is proposed to be for most of the affordable housing, and the majority of them are 2-bedroom family dwellings, so they can have up to 4 people living in them. And then there are the other affordable housing. There's 10 houses altogether, affordable housing. And then the remainder of the development is for market housing. And so if we move to the next slide. So this is just the play equipment that will be located on Mangrove Drive or adjacent to Mangrove Drive. And you'll see that it's located in various places along the pathway. So there are trees separating the play equipment from the properties adjoining, as well as there is existing landscaping on the northern side of Mangrove Drive adjacent to the site. So there will be a mixture of landscaping on the development site as well as existing landscaping on the Mangrove Drive area. Okay, if we can move to the next slide. So these are the elevations of the proposed development. So the top top 2 areas is the northern road of the development, and then the bottom 2 are the other side. So that's looking north, and then the other 2 is looking south. And you see the apartment building. The master plan, or sorry, the Hart 5 did permit 3.5-story apartment building, similar to the one or similar to the height of the one in Ashbourne Gardens. But in the assessment of the proposal, during pre-application stage, it was considered that a 3-story building would fit much better in the development site. So that's why it's 3 stories rather than 3.5 stories. And then the remainder of the site is 2-story with rooms in the roof for some of the dwellings. Because it's in a conservation area, at this point in time, there is no permitted development rights for loft conversions in the legislation. If we can move to the next slide, which is more street scenes. So these are the north-south roads, sort of in the middle of the site. The bottom one is the dwellings that face the green belt or the green figure on the site. And then moving up is the other north-south looking dwellings. At the top of the screen, the 2 semi-detached dwellings are the affordable housing dwellings. And then below that, the next street, well, it's the same street, but it's on the other side of the road, are 3 of the larger affordable dwellings. Okay, if we can move to the next one, I think we're coming to an end. This is the last slide. So this is the area where it's facing onto the play space. So it is the dwellings along that area. So the play space would be overlooked by the development itself. some of the residents of Mangrove Drive suggested that the play space was pushed back away from the rest of the development, but that's not the case. It is part of the development. It just forms two areas. It allows for play space during the day, and then at night it enables, it provides a wildlife corridor. I just wanted to, in conclusion, just highlight that proposed condition 33 limits the garages to be used as garages, so, and not as additional living space. So that would require a planning application, and it would be subject to an assessment of car parking. So I think that that was a concern for some people. There are a number of conditions in the report and in the update sheet that cover a number of areas that I haven't addressed in detail in the presentation. And in addition to those proposed conditions, there is the Section 106 heads of terms, which are set out at paragraph 8.42 to 8.49 of the report, and it covers a number of areas and contributions towards open space and playing fields, schools, etc. I'm happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Fiona. That was really a very thorough presentation. I wonder if I can just raise a couple of points with you, kind of by way of extending your presentation before we throw the floor open to members. Some weeks ago, trees were felled on the site, and that caused some concern to local residents. And I think I'm also right to say that there's been some comment from local residents that some elements of the application that's before us now were not adequately foreshadowed at the exhibition that occurred, I don't know, more than a year ago at the cricket club just over the road. And I wondered if you might want to comment on those 2 points, just to set the scene.
Sure. Certainly, the tree removal did generate a lot more objections this year because the application was consulted on quite some time ago. The tree removal was always part of the application, and it was set out in the application. Perhaps if I could just go to the PowerPoint presentation and the master plan, so it's the second slide. Oh, sorry, the third slide. Yeah, thank you. So this is the master plan document, and you can see with that document, which was adopted by Council in January 2020, that where the trees are located. So I think that it was always the proposal to remove trees on the site. And the applicant, because of the delay due to sorting out the drainage issues, they were concerned because now we're in the bird nesting season, that there would be difficulties or further delays in removing the trees. So what they did was applied to the council to remove the trees because the trees are in a conservation area. Unless the trees were worthy of a TPO, and subject to the master plan in front of us. The tree officer didn't consider that it was required to TPO any of the trees because it was part of the planning application, and they liaised with the landscape officer as part of their proposal to, or sorry, as part of their assessment of the tree application. So I think that that's why there have been a number of objections to the removal of the trees. But as you can see, this document from 2020 does indicate the trees to generally be retained and those to be removed. What I would point out is that the applicant has proposed, because of the objections from some of the residents in Queen's Road and their concern about being able to view the development at night, they have agreed to the proposed holly hedge along the boundary, along the western boundary of the development site, and also the additional tree planting. So that's not shown in the master plan.
Okay. Thank you, Fiona. Of course, we haven't yet got to the moment for members because we have speakers. And I'm just looking sideways at Peter Mannings. We have two speakers who wish to speak against this application, Peter.
Yeah, I'm just emitting them now. There you go. They should be coming into the meeting now. They are sharing the time with Milena speaking first.
Let's see if I can see them on the screen. Okay, so we have one speaker is Milena Nuti. I can see you on the screen, Milena. And then, yes, I see Neil Spooner as well. Now, between you, as has obviously been explained, you've got 6 minutes. If you've watched planning meetings before, you'll know that whatever time you get, we stick to it. So you will be cut off at 6 minutes if you're still speaking. I believe you've worked out between you how you're going to share the 6 minutes. That's entirely up to you. But from the moment whoever starts speaking starts, the 6 minutes runs, and we will bring the guillotine down when we hit the 6 minute. So whichever of you wishes to go first, you're very welcome. Just let me say for the benefit of members and anybody viewing on YouTube that Milena Nuti is a representative of the Oak Grove Residents Association and also Hertford Civic Society. Is it fair to say you're representing both those?
Yes, I'm representing both those organisations.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Neil Spooner is representing the Ashbourne Gardens Residents Association. So, okay, whichever of you wishes to go first in your good time.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you say, I am speaking on behalf of both Oak Grove Residents Association and the Hertford Civic Society, both of whom members have submitted a large number of individual detailed objections, as you'll probably have seen in your packs. As a resident, I'm very familiar with these proposals, having attended both developer consultation meetings and council organised place shaping events. It is very disappointing that despite attempts to engage on this site, we're now at committee with significant outstanding concerns. The first is that if you can't fit necessary infrastructure on your plot, your development is too big for your site. This land falls into two parts, the development site and a designated green finger protected element. Hertford's green fingers, first identified by the Civic Society in 1976, are recognised by the council, including in the local plan, as a priceless environmental asset to the town and have benefit both to local people and visitors alike to be maintained and enhanced as appropriate. At the outset, the council aspiration for this development was to improve access for the community to the green finger for public open space amenity. Developers seemed unsure how to resolve matters of ownership and maintenance, but what everybody agreed upon was that the green finger part of the plot is not the development site. Now it turns out, if this was part of the plan all along, it was not discussed at the public engagement meetings, that an attenuation pond or reservoir located within the green finger is required to service the 68 dwellings proposed. The local community accepts the provision of housing on this development site, and the council recognises the need for around 50 dwellings. The developers claim to be able to fit 68 dwellings on the site, but to do so, they plan to encroach on the green finger and overspill beyond the boundaries of the development site. If to service 68 dwellings, you must build infrastructure beyond the site boundaries, then 68 dwellings don't fit on your plot. Please ensure the number of dwellings and their supporting infrastructure requirements are commensurate with the size of the development plot. 2, trees. Before receiving permission for this proposal, the developers have initiated a wide-ranging ground clearing exercise. Again, this runs counter to the undertakings offered at community meetings to remove only scrub trees to improve the chances of more mature specimens. In fact, many mature specimens have been felled. The community recognises that these may not have benefited from a TPO, but this is a low bar for environmental protections bordering the green belt. Had the developers shared the ambition to fell all trees without a TPO, there would have been justifiable local uproar. As it is, this loss having occurred, the meagre proposals for replanting and replacement of some holly bushes are woefully inadequate. Many replacement native trees should be required by condition if this development goes ahead. And finally, please take into account safety concerns with traffic management along Mangrove Road and the narrow path pedestrians, many of whom are young children going to and from school, have to navigate alongside speeding vehicles, construction traffic and passing farm machinery. Imposing stringent planning conditions for traffic management during development and in future is essential. I hope councillors will claw back here at committee undertakings made by the developers but not subsequently honoured. To summarise, no aspect of the development on the green finger, substantive replanting and replacement of trees, and traffic management and pedestrian safety scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Milena.
Mr. Spooner.
Thank you, Milena. My name's Dr. Spooner. I'm a resident of Ashbourne Gardens. In addition to supporting everything Milena had to say, I would just like to point out that a number of the plots on the northern boundary, namely plot 31, 34 and 26, are 2.5 stories high and are overlooking Ashbourne Gardens, particularly one of them overlooking my garden at the front and the back and neighbours' gardens. I'm not quite sure why we needed the tall properties to be on that border when they could not be accommodated elsewhere on the development where they would not overlook anyone else's property at all. They'd be looking directly into our windows, and I'm not quite sure why we have the highest buildings overlooking myself and my neighbours. In addition to this, on November the 5th, 2019, a number of residents of Ashbourne Gardens met with Carla Holmes and were presented with 3 options for the houses bordering Ashbourne Gardens. We selected one that was to our preference. It turns out that what is being proposed took into account none of that consultation. So none of the 3 plans presented to us are in the final version. The one we chose had much less overlooking Ashbourne Gardens. So it is possible to fit the same number of properties in, but overlook Ashbourne Gardens to a much lesser degree and is currently done so. My second point is supporting Milena's point about Mangrove Road. Since the opening of the school, there are a lot of primary school children going along Mangrove Road. The pavement there is very narrow, very rutted, and very degraded. People have to step out into the road to pass. There's a lot of children on scooters and on bikes. That pathway needs to be much wider, and the 20-mile-an-hour limit needs to be extended out much further than it is at the moment. It's a very dangerous area. And I've seen a number of cases with caravans coming close to bumping into children on scooters. So they're my main points, plus the green finger. An additional point about that, the attenuation pond. I'm not quite sure how they're going to get the earth movers through without demolishing the beech trees. And I would like to make sure that that beech tree avenue of mature beech trees is preserved. There's no way at the moment that earth movers can get through there without demolishing them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Spooner. And thank you, both of you, for timing your joint presentation so nicely to 6 minutes. Thank you very much. I think maybe the first thing I should do there is just take us back to, well, no, that's not right. I need to take our other public speaker, who is Mr. Neil Farnsworth, who is a Senior Planning Manager for Carla Homes. And Peter, just to confirm, Mr. Farnsworth gets 6 minutes.
Yep.
And gets it all to himself. Is that right?
Yep.
Very good. Okay, well, I guess you heard what I said to the previous speakers, Mr. Farnsworth, which is that time will start when you start speaking. And if you are still speaking at 6 minutes, you will be cut off. So start when you're ready. Thank you.
Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening to present our proposed development at land to the west of Mangrove Road, Hertford. Carla Homes, North Home County, is a part of the wider Carla Group, a nationally recognised five-star house builder who has been building high-quality, well-designed developments for over 30 years. The development at Mangrove Road will be our third development within East Herts in recent years. This follows our successes at the completed Bulls Park and also our development at Cafefield Puckeridge, where new residents are now starting to move in. The application in front of you today is of 68 new homes, comprising a mix of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 bedroom dwellings. In line with council policy, 40% of these homes are to be allocated as affordable, and these are of a variety of sizes and tenure types as agreed with the council's housing department. Wheelchair compatible homes, as required by policy, are also included. The site is allocated for development as Site Hart 5 within the East Herts District Plan 2018. The redevelopment of the site for housing is therefore acceptable in principle. Policy Hart 5 sets out that the site is suitable for around 50 dwellings. This figure is an indicative capacity. It is not a maximum figure, and the policy does not stipulate a maximum figure. Instead, in accordance with urban design guidelines, the total number of units on a site should be informed by the site's context, the surrounding density, and the council's amenity guidelines, all of which were established during the application's extensive master planning process. The site has a proposed density of 26 dwellings per hectare, which is considered low. This calculation excludes the greenbelt land to the west and includes the open space to the front of the site and the linear play area to the south. As a comparable, Ashbourne Gardens to the north has a density of 30 dwellings per hectare and includes none of the levels of open space proposed within this site. All privacy distances, rear garden depths and levels of amenity space are compliant with council policy. The council's urban design officer is supportive of the proposals and advises that the proposals accord with the agreed master planning framework document that was the subject of extensive public consultation. The development has no objection from Herts Highways and brings with it a package of highways improvements to the local area that Carla will be installing, including improvements to the existing raised informal pedestrian crossing across Hagsdale Road, a new zebra crossing on Mangrove Road near to London Road, and a new gateway feature to the south of the site for traffic calming. EV charging points are also to be provided throughout the development. An attenuation pond is proposed within the open space to the west of the site. This will be a wet pond that has water in it all year round. The pond serves a dual function of storing surface water runoff, but also provides new wetland habitats and biodiversity. All material excavated to form the pond will be removed from the open space and will be reused on the main part of the development site in line with the recommendations set out in the HCC Minerals and Waste Response. Any excavation associated with drainage pipework will also see the land reverted back to its original condition with additional planting where necessary. We are aware of the number of objections that have been received over the last few weeks in relation to this element of the proposal. The pond in this location has always formed part of the planning application since its submission in August 2020, and no objections in relation to this part of the proposal had been received until a few weeks ago. The construction of the pond is classified as an engineering operation. Policy GBR1 of the district plan states that planning applications within the green belt will be considered in line with the provisions of the National Planning Policy Framework. Paragraph 146 of the NPPF states that certain other forms of development are not inappropriate within the green belt, provided they preserve its openness. Within this list of not inappropriate forms of development, engineering operations are included. This form of development is therefore acceptable in this greenbelt location in accordance with both local and national planning policy. The pond is to sit at the top of the existing slope at the west of the site, within the least vegetated part of the open space. The existing slope is steep, with significant levels of vegetation, trees and bushes located on it that will remain. The pond is to have grass sloped sides which are to be planted and will sit as part of the existing slope. Due to existing boundary screening and internal planting, views into this part of the site are limited to only a few properties in Queen's Road, located over 120 metres away. As evidenced by the sections provided by Carla, The pond will read as a natural extension of the existing gradient from the valley floor to the top of the site. It will have absolutely no impact on the openness of the green belt and the green finger. It will read as part of the existing landscape and does not result in significant harm. Again, I reiterate that development of this type is considered by both local and national planning policy as not an inappropriate form of development for the green belt. As referred to in the officer's report, tree removal has taken place on the site. This followed an application made to the council for the removal of the trees within a conservation area, which was approved by the council. The trees were removed in advance of obtaining planning permission to enable 2 phases of archaeological trenching to take place across the full extent of the site, which could not be done with the trees in situ. As part of our pre-application discussions with Herts County Council, it was requested by them that full trenching take place prior to the determination of any planning application to determine the level of archaeological significance on the site. It was not therefore possible to delay the tree removal until planning permission had been granted. All trees removed were in accordance with the plans submitted to and approved by the council, the same plans in front of you today, and were informed by the advice of our arboricultural consultant. In conclusion, this development brings forward much needed new housing in an attractive and well-designed development on an allocated site which retains the openness of the green belt and the Hertford green finger. There are no consultee objections to the proposal, and it is wholly compliant with both national and local planning policy. We sincerely hope the committee can support this.
It's time to stop now, Mr. Foss. I thought you took a breath there and came back, but I think we've got you. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, thank you to all those speakers, much appreciated. In a minute, we'll throw it open to the floor, but I just think we might just go back to the case officer, Fiona Dunning, just to see if there's anything in those various comments that you wish to make comment immediately upon, Fiona. If not, we'll go straight through to members.
I think just in relation to Mr. Spooner was concerned about the protection of the beech trees. There is a condition proposed in the list of conditions to cover tree protection during construction, and that's condition 14.
Thank you. Okay. Members. I've got Councillor Ruffles, Councillor Redfern, and Councillor Crystal, and we'll take you in that order, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Before the committee gets down to the more explicit and direct issues, and there are plenty that I'm sure we want to discuss, I wonder whether I could just ask a question of one of the officers about the relevance of land ownership. It's come in twice. One is the kink in the boundary change, as it were, and I think Fiona said that she was confident that the applicant had a permission there or an agreement of some kind, and the other one is in particularly in a late representation this evening about land ownership and the watercourse, and I wondered about the issues there, whether the riparian owner of the watercourse has to give permission, as it were, or whether in fact it is the authority that manages the watercourse. So it's just around to what extent should we take any form of land ownership into consideration.
Thank you, Peter. I think Councillor Redfern's next.
I thought that was going to be answered straight away. I'm very pleased that such a lot of work has been done for the protection of the wildlife area, and a great deal of attention has been paid to the attenuation pond despite all of the complaints. So I'm pleased about that, and there's obviously a lot of attention being given to the whole plan. But after all of that attention, there is very little biodiversity net gain. And we're told in the plans that there'll be off-site compensation. Where will that be, I wonder? And also I'm concerned about the not enough has been done for energy consumption, well, energy production really, with voltaic panels and ground source heating. The thing that just came up, which I wanted to just say something about, was it has been mentioned that the highways, there are going to be improvement to the highways, but nobody mentioned any improvement to the footpaths, which are pretty narrow along there. And I would like to know if something can be done about that. My biggest and greatest disappointment, however, is the affordable housing. 27 units in all. 85% of those units are 2 bedrooms or less. And really, they are not proper family homes. They're small, very small family homes. So someone moves in there, has a child. In a couple of years, they have another child and they're getting overcrowded. A third child would really put them in a squash. Of the private housing, 95% is of 3 bedrooms or over. So there's a real contrast between those two provisions. This to me is disappointing in the extreme. We need affordable houses for families. The boast of 40% affordable, in which I at first believed to be commendable, now appears to be highly misleading, as it does not fulfill local need. This plan adheres to the words of our policy, but not to its spirit. And then in point 814, I read, it appears that 25% of this affordable housing is for shared ownership rather than the 10% in the local plan. I don't recognise that 10%, I have to say. Therefore, only 75% of these tiny dwellings, and not the 90% promised, are to be for affordable rent. I just think it's incredibly disappointing. And a social rent, well, I don't suppose there's any social rent included in those figures. What is the point of having a policy if it's so frequently disregarded? You know, what size of the dwellings which will be for shared ownership? I assume that there will be the 3-bedroomed houses. I'm very, very unhappy about this. Very unhappy indeed. Thank you.
Councillor Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a couple of comments first. I noticed, I think the officer mentioned that there's been a lot of objections from residents nearby recently since the tree cutting had taken place, the recent tree clearance. And I kind of understand that, but I do think that it maybe that reflects perhaps that residents generally are becoming much more sensitive to any kind of tree removal. I think Peter and I see that in Bengio, but I wondered if perhaps this is a good moment to remind developers and perhaps officers as well that actually a letter and a bit of engagement with residents in that situation could have helped people understand what was going on and not be so alarmed about the sudden sight of large numbers of trees being cleared. I think that's something maybe that all developers should be trying to engage more with the residents locally. I just wanted to move on to the attenuation pond. So I understand that that's a key issue of contention. So I understand. So I'm just to be clear, it will be a permanent wet pond, not just a sort of volume to catch water occasionally and funnel it onwards. I think that's a really important point. I think if it had just been a swale to catch floodwater, I think I would have felt very very much like the residents do, and been very concerned that this is being built in the green spaces. But because it's going to be a permanent wet pond, I think it's very important that we remember that this will bring significant benefits to wildlife there. It will be a significant asset for biodiversity. You know, there's plenty of evidence that bringing permanent water into a site brings benefits to all kinds of creatures and a whole load of ecosystems. And so I think it's actually that point is something that we shouldn't forget. It's that's a positive development for this wild space. At the moment, you've got the Hagsdale stream at the bottom, which, if I remember from my visit last summer, was almost dry, and with ongoing climate change, it will almost certainly dry out in the summer. Whereas if we've got a permanent water feature pond on the site, that's going to bring real benefits to all of the wildlife there. So I think that's something to be positive about. But having said that, I completely get the worry of view. So I wondered if I could ask officers if it's possible to ensure that it is planted on the downslope, and that there is full mixed native planting across the slope of the actual the engineered part of the pond, so that is completely softened and lost in the view. I guess it's going to be done through the length, but should it be done through a condition? That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. So we'll come back to you then, Fiona. You've got various points from those first three councillors to speak.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. In relation to the land ownership and the watercourse, there's the land ownership. So whoever owns the land adjacent to the watercourse would have to give their consent, and so the developers have contacted the landowner, which is not the residents in Queen's Road. It is another landowner, because the proposed access to the stream has been moved southward. In relation to the watercourse, it would be the authority who manages the watercourse. So it's my understanding that the lead local flood authority would be involved in the permission to discharge into the watercourse. Okay, in relation to biodiversity net gain, the provision of off-site biodiversity is proposed, and I have discussed this with the County Council officer to see if they have any projects for biodiversity grassland, because it can't be provided on site, and it's the grassland that is proposed to be improved. So the policy allows for off-site provision, and we're currently working on where that will be located, and ideally it would be nearby so that there is a local benefit to the biodiversity net gain. The energy consumption, as I mentioned in my presentation, the sustainability SPD doesn't apply to this application because it was adopted after the application was submitted. However, the application does provide a number of energy efficiency proposals above the building regulations, and that includes air source heat pumps for the dwellings, the building materials that are proposed, and unfortunately at this stage the apartment building is proposed to be gas boilers, but the environmental health officer has recommended a condition, I think it might be condition 18, that they be efficient gas boilers, but that doesn't mean to say that Carla Holmes may decide to not provide gas boilers, but it's unfortunately it wasn't considered that we could condition those gas boilers out. In terms of the affordable housing, I fully appreciate the concern, Councillor, that you have. However, the policy does allow for flexibility in the provision of housing, and in the report at 8.17, initially the application came in with 7 one-bedroom flats, which obviously couldn't house a family, but that was changed, that was reduced to 3 one-bedroom flats. And so there are 14 two-bedroom larger dwellings that can provide for a family. In relation to the, you also mentioned the shared ownership. The NPPF requires the 10% of the total development to have shared ownership. So the council has no ability in amending that. The shared ownership is 5 two-bedroom dwellings and 2 3-bedroom dwellings. So there are 3 3-bedroom affordable rent dwellings as part of the affordable housing. In regard to tree removal, yes, I think, Councillor, the approach could have, given the history of the site, the approach could have been different. But I think, to be fair to the developer, they applied to the council to remove the trees, and the council doesn't have any requirement to consult neighbours, unlike a planning application where we consult neighbours. There is no requirement. I think certainly if the developer was involved in something similar in the future, I'm sure that they would discuss it with local residents before undertaking any works on site. Yes, the attenuation pond is completely a wet pond, so which is the reason why the fencing is proposed. So it will be permanently wet. I didn't realize until you spoke the benefits of having that pond if the stream at the bottom of the site is dry quite often. So it does provide a good water source. And when I was reading about the green finger and the conservation area and the Civic Society's document, they all referred to ponds in other areas around the site, and how those ponds provide a lot of wildlife from newts to birds to snakes. You know, it's quite a wide range of wildlife that they cater for. So I think that it is a really positive part of the development. And then I think that was it.
If it helps you, Fiona, I think there's one point that you've not responded to, which was the reference to footpaths.
Oh, sorry, I haven't put that in there. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Footpaths, because of the narrowness of Mangrove Road, I don't think it is possible to widen the footpath, because we'll then eat into the existing landscaping of the site, and it's not possible to then go on the other side. But it's certainly something that the Highways Authority did consider as part of the assessment of the application.
I wonder if it would be permissible for me to come in with a small comment in relation to footpaths, if people will allow me. I wonder if something that you could raise with county is just maintain, even if we can't make the footpaths wider, can we maintain them a bit better so that vegetation doesn't encroach the footpaths? I've got a feeling that if the vegetation was pushed back, and that includes grass, all of a sudden there'd be quite a bit more width on the footpaths, which I think would be very welcome, irrespective, frankly, of this application. So if I could ask you to do that. Okay,
Chairman, can I step in a point of order there?
Yes.
David Andrews here. When we talk to county, we have to be very clear. If we talk about footpaths, we're talking about a point A to point B across fields and through woods and through forests. If it's beside a highway, it is a footway.
Well said. Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to come back to members. I've got one or two hands showing on the screen, and the next round will be councillors Kay, Stowe and Buckmaster, please.
Sorry, Chairman. Can I just very quickly interrupt? I didn't get a final response about the planting on the downside of the
That's fair comment. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
If that's all right, I can wait.
No,
let's do it.
No, you're quite right. Let's do it now while it's fresh.
Thank you.
Sorry, Fiona, I should have done.
No, that's okay. I have landscaping written down, but I didn't remember what it was referring to. In the representation summary, near the bottom of the page, I propose to include in condition 15 landscaping of the western side of the attenuation pond, as well as landscape the repairing of any damage caused by the laying of drainage pipe if that was to occur. So I think that I would think that that would cover the planting of the attenuation basin. I guess you just need to be careful of the types of trees if they're going to be located on top of the basin wall. So they have to be fairly small, but certainly they could all be native trees. And I can add that to.
Yes, and again, if I may, with Councillor Crystal's permission, I suspect Councillor Crystal is probably thinking broadly of landscaping and the visuals. You may have come up with some specific concepts in your question, Councillor Crystal, but I suspect you're looking at a bigger picture scenario, aren't you? Which is that you would like to feel this pond will be landscaped in a way which will minimise the visual impact. Is that fair?
That's fair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Good. All right. Okay. Well, that's great so far. So let's just get back to our next three members to speak. So in this order, please, Councillors Kay, Stowe. No, I beg your pardon. Councillor Beckett comes first because he had his hand up longer. So it's Councillor Beckett, Councillor Kay, Councillor Stowe, and Councillor Buckmaster, please.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I did take my hand down because my question had been asked. I will make a point, actually, reading through the sustainability statement, more for Carla Holmes than it is for the officers, although possibly for officers reviewing energy plans. But I see in the energy statement that Carla Holmes plans to put A++ and A+ appliances in, which will be extremely difficult now because that system changed as of this month from A to G. So there's no A++ anymore, but something maybe for officers to keep an eye on.
Thanks very much, Terence. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Kay, please.
Thanks very much, Chairman. There's references to electric car charging in garages, in each garage throughout the document, page 57.30, but it's also raised by Highways at Hertfordshire County Council and Hertford Town Council, and it's welcomed by them. But it actually refers in all of that to electric car charging in garages. And for many people, they would prefer to have their car charger actually just outside the garage on a wall nearby. So are we talking about electric car chargers at each house? Or will they get you the choice to have it outside? For example, if they've got two cars, they might want the petrol car in the garage and the electric car charging outside. So is there the option for that? And also in terms of electric car chargers for the flats, will the flats have designated parking spaces, and therefore can the flat owners, the first flat owners, actually say, well, I'd like an electric charger, by my car parking space? The other query I had was about the play area. I wonder if you could just give us a bit more information on that in terms of the age group that it would be aiming at, and what sort of play equipment we're talking about. I think I saw a diagram of a seesaw in your presentation, but I'm not quite sure. So if you can just tell us a little bit more about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Councillor Stowe.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a couple of points I'd like clarified, and also a point I'd like to request we could do. There's been a lot of talk about this top part of the green finger where the beech trees are, and I'm not sure whether you're saying that there will be public access, because I'm rather keen that there's no public access. So perhaps you could clarify that for me. And the other thing, I wanted to know what fencing there is between Mangrove Drive and the play areas. If we thought about that, if there's going to be timber or what it's going to be. And the question I'd like to ask, could a condition be put in the effort for rainwater harvesting that each house has a water butt, so they can use that water to water the garden, wash cars, etc., etc. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. And then Councillor Ruth Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a couple of points really I'd just like clarified. First one is on the play area, and I know you've got a couple of other questions about the play area. I noticed on condition 15, when you talk about the lamp and you've got all the extra additions you've added to it about looking after and maintaining the ecological biodiversity of the area. But I can't find anywhere that who's going to look after and maintain the play equipment, because obviously play equipment has to be inspected and it has to have its ROSPA certificates annually. So I'd like obviously clarification on that. And then the second point was on condition 19, when you talked about the bird and bat boxes, and you said installed prior to occupation and retained as such thereafter. Can we make that as a condition to be a permanent retain, as obviously, as houses are sold and people move on? I think the chances are they could be removed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ruth. Thank you. Okay, so we'll take that set of questions then. I think it's fair to say in the end, Councillor Beckett didn't have a question. He was just making an observation, useful, but thank you for that. So Fiona, if you could start with Councillor Kay's comments and then take it from there, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So the electric charging points, sorry, I was looking for the condition. I think it does say garages, but we can amend that to say per dwelling so that there is flexibility. I guess I'm not sure if the development's approved and it goes ahead, whether Carla Homes build it and then sell it, or if they have buyers sort of influencing some of the fitting out of certain things. But the flexibility can be added into the condition so that each property, each dwelling has electric charging point. In relation to the apartment building, there is a condition proposed for details to be submitted. And at that point, we would talk about where the charging points could go. But realistically, I think it's probably better to have all of the all of the car parking spaces able to have a charging point. So what is called a passive ability to provide charging points, because there is likely to be a significant increase in the buying of electric cars in the future. Sorry, I'm just trying to look for the condition. Yeah, I just can't find the proposed conditions, but if I can amend it so that the final wording allows the flexibility of that condition of the electric charging points for houses and also apartment buildings. The play area, the age group is to be younger children. So I think it's 1 to 4 years or 5 years old, the play equipment. So they would be supervised by parents and guardians as part of that. And the maintenance of the play equipment and the open space on the site, the car parking, landscaping, other things. There is proposed in the section 106 that it would be a management company similar to other large-scale developments where they would maintain the equipment and the roadways. So that is that. They would also be responsible for the bird and bat boxes and ensuring that they are in place. I'm not sure if there's anything more we could do with the bird and bat boxes to prevent people from removing them. I haven't been aware that that is an issue in the past, but maybe, Councillor, if you know some examples, that would be helpful. And then there was the fencing between the play equipment and Mangrove Drive. There is existing fencing. It's wire fencing along that boundary, and it's not proposed to alter that fencing because it has a lot of landscaping along there. So it would, if it was removed, it would well, it's not proposed to be removed. The green finger, the difficulty is trying to provide some amenity space for residents of this development as well as nearby. So it was proposed that the holly hedge would form the boundary, but it wouldn't be a fenced boundary on that edge of the development. I think that would look a little bit unsightly. So it would be between the edge of the development, the driveways to the western dwellings, and the existing fence would be open so that residents and visitors could access that area. So, but if members considered that that wasn't acceptable and you wanted to completely close off that area, then that is a possibility. I just don't think it would look attractive to have some kind of boundary fence in that location. And water butt. There is a condition proposed for water usage, And it's my understanding that in order to meet the building regulations, the provision of water butts is quite common. It's normally not shown on planning application, but when it comes to building regulations, quite often water butts are included as an improvement in sustainability.
I think you've covered the points, with one possible exception. Councillor Kay asked whether the flats would have designated parking spaces, and I'm sorry if I missed your answer to that.
No, I didn't answer that because it hasn't been indicated on the plan that I can recall. But I did find the conditions, the condition for the condition 29, proposed condition 29, each residential garage shall incorporate an electric vehicle ready domestic charging point. We could change that to each residential dwelling shall incorporate if members considered that was appropriate, or we could say each residential garage or suitable alternative area. And then so condition 30, the passive provision of charging electric vehicles for all properties without a garage shall be submitted to and approved in writing. So that includes the apartment buildings as well.
Well, if I may say, Fiona, without stopping to take a straw poll of members, I'm pretty sure that all members know perfectly, as we all do, know that electric cars are coming. It's not if, it's, you know, it's a certainty. So I think we would broadly like there to be maximum car charging provision made for each dwelling, and that includes each flat, I would have thought. And I think that's what Councillor Kay was driving at in his question, I suspect. I was rather hoping he might nod there or
yes, sorry, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, I think the point 29 actually describes it better than the other parts of the document where it talks about in each garage, because condition 29 refers to incorporating electric vehicle ready domestic charging point. So incorporating could mean in a garage, it could be on a garage, and that was the flexibility I was trying to get to. But of course that doesn't cover the flats. That's a separate issue. Thank you.
All right. And then if I may, before we get to Councillors Page and Kemp, who I know have got their hands up, can I just bring you back, indeed everybody, back to the public access point? It does seem to me that this is quite an important point and not necessarily easy, because, you know, there's a sense in all of us that we'd like everybody to be able to share the great outdoors. But on the other hand, if everybody tramples over the great outdoors, it very quickly stops being the great outdoors. So that's obviously the thinking behind Councillor Stowe's question. And indeed, I rather wonder what the residents of Queen's Road might think if there were to be a lot of public usage of the Green Finger access through this site. So I just wonder whether there might be, in effect, a two-step process here, which I don't know, I'm thinking absolutely allowed, which is whether the initial position should be no public access, and then that leaves open the possibility that that might be relaxed at some point in the future. I would think the alternative or the opposite would be harder to evolve. If we were to start with public access and then endeavour to restrict that, that would be a difficult transition. But I'm absolutely thinking aloud. So perhaps I'll just let that thought sit with people, and then we'll come on to Councillors Page and Kemp, please, in that order.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, about one of the trees, tree 133. If you refer to the officer's report, page 23, tree removal and retention, it appears ambiguous to me as to whether tree 133 stays or goes, and I'd be interested to know the relevance of that particular tree. And secondly, we had a question earlier on about mitigation for the lack of biodiversity, in the report, an amount of 18,600 has been suggested for off-site grassland and woodland improvements. My question there is, bearing in mind that it's Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust that presumably have been asking for this money, would the money be retained within East Herts, or is there a danger of it being spent elsewhere?
Thank you very much, Tim. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Chair. My comments are largely about fencing and the green finger access, so your comments just now were particularly apposite. It was certainly a concern, as we read through all the details beforehand, about potential access to this green finger and the possible harm it could cause. And I think we welcomed, when we made our site visit, to see that there is already this existing chain link fence at the western end of the site, which was referred to in the presentation, and that this actually provides a good existing barrier that stops people getting into the green finger. A couple of points about that. It seems to be in an appropriate place. It does have a gap in it at the moment, and therefore I have a question about how it would be maintained and whether some sort of condition should be put in regarding that. The question of maintenance has already been raised, and the management committee idea has been suggested, but I'd like to know how this would be financed, because most of the new houses will be freehold, it would appear, in private ownership. How would money actually be taken from those? In some cases, it seems as if a flat management company has ended up carrying the whole burden of maintenance charges for an entire estate, which is largely owner occupied. And I'd like to know what safeguards there are against that and how this management committee would be financed. As far as the chain link fence goes, so I think it's appropriate for people to be able to walk up as far as that chain link fence. They would be able to get some view over the valley. It would only be a very small area that they were accessing. It would also be the access road for the pond. And moreover, they do have an extensive green area on the other side of the development in Balls Park, which they can walk to and get countryside access. But I do wonder, actually, the chain link fence is one of the least attractive features of the site, and whether any landscaping or shrub planting could be done along that, which could gradually grow up and make it into a more natural looking barrier. On the south side, on the Mangrove Drive side, I'm very pleased to hear that that chain link fence will stay in place, especially as there is existing hedging on the Mangrove Drive side, which will help to provide some screening from the play areas.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kemp. And Councillor Redfern got a hand up, so I'll take you as a third member on this round, Councillor Redfern. Or is that an old hand?
No, it isn't. Thank you very much for letting me come back. I just wanted to say that I thought in the report that it made it fairly clear that the green finger beyond the chain link fence was not to be accessed, and that the treed area at the western edge would be accessible to the residents. I thought that was sort of fairly clear, and I feel just like Councillor Kemp that fence really needs to be maintained, and that needs to be almost a wildlife reserve beyond that fence. I wouldn't like to think that people couldn't see it through the fence, however. If there was too much planting, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. So, you know, it's a balance, isn't it? That's all I want to say, really.
Thank you for a helpful comment. Thank you very much, Councillor Redfern. And actually, Councillor Beckett's got his hand up, and since Councillor Redfern's comment was quite short, we'll let you in now, Terence. but you are muted.
I managed to unmute and then remute myself in one foul swoop. I'm not normally that efficient. Thanks, Chair. I do have some minor concerns about the application's compliance against TRA2. Whilst cycle storage and cycle position and etc. are being put in, I don't consider Mangrove Lane particularly safe for cycling, given that it's a narrow road. Reading through the applicant's own travel plan for residents, whilst the school's within distance, the highways recommended distances to local amenities aren't met in terms of shops. And even the bus stop, which actually was within 1,000 metres, it's 640 metres away, but given the route that people would have to take, I think it is somewhat tenuous to think that it meets unequivocally all of the requirements under TRA2, and I appreciate the officer's comments against that.
Thank you very much. Okay, Fiona, this could be the last round of councillor comments for response, but away you go.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I might need a little bit of time to respond to Councillor Beckett's query in relation to TRA2. But going back to Councillor Page's queries, tree 133 is shown to be retained on the landscape plan, so it would be retained as part of the landscaping. The biodiversity contribution hasn't come from the Wildlife Trust. Well, the requirement net biodiversity improvements have been requested by the Wildlife Trust, but it's Hearts Ecology who is the statutory authority in relation to that. The contribution is going towards will be paid to Hertfordshire County Council, who manage the projects for biodiversity improvements at this point. And I will be discussing with them in relation to where the money can be spent. It doesn't need to be near to the site, but I think it would be beneficial to be certainly within Hertford. I think it would be unreasonable for it to be outside of East Herts District Council area. But there's something that, because it's a fairly new policy, there are sort of small projects that the County Council have mentioned, and it may be, because it is grassland, it may be just some of the pathways that have been used heavily over COVID lockdown. There might be some improvements to those. So certainly there are plenty of ways to improve biodiversity with that contribution. In relation to the fence, Councillor Kemp, I have proposed condition 37. It's in the additional representations. And I have proposed that the fence remain in place and include a controlled gate, and the details to be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority, and that would be prior to first occupation. And so the fence that is there at the moment would remain, and then it would be to the east of that fence, so where the beech trees are and the proposed holly hedge and the other planting, that would be open. And I don't think it would be possible to fence that off. And I think that would then allow, at least for the western side of the fence, to remain as a wildlife area. So I think Ashbourne Gardens, I don't think any of that area to the west of Ashbourne Gardens has access to that green finger, and I think that it would work well if the same approach was taken for this development. The management company is proposed by, I think, Section 106 obligation, and normally there is a fee that is paid by residents of the development to the management company. I think it's a nominal fee for them to maintain the area of the roads and the communal open space, and including the children's play area. I've got Councillor Redfern, you referred to the tree. I'm not sure, I think you mentioned that about the proposed condition about the fencing. So if that is covered already, I think it is. And then I will need to just have a look at the comments in relation to TRA2, Councillor Beckett. So I'm not sure if it's possible to possibly ask if there's any other members who have queries. I just wanted to check the Highway Authority's comments, because they would be ones who would provide comments on that policy in relation to the development.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. Okay, I think we are nearly at the end now. I've got one or two wrap-up comments, but Councillor Crystal's hand has gone up again. So away you go, Councillor Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really just a comment, just to comment on the energy and sustainability level of the homes. I'm kind of really disappointed that Carla Homes have provided an energy and sustainability report on these properties, which really is disappointing. I think it's 1 to 2% typically above Part L, and I think we should be doing better. I think they should be doing better. I think that creating homes at this stage, when we could be in seeing major changes coming in 3 or 4 years, we could see that these homes are going to be sold on to residents who will move in, and by that stage these homes could be in effect substandard, and that worries me when as a district we pride ourselves on high quality construction. So I'm very disappointed, and I hope Carla Homes are listening and would maybe try and make some changes before completion to improve the energy and sustainability of these properties.
Thank you very much. Okay, just then, Fiona, I suppose I've got kind of one question, and then I've got some wrap-up points. And my kind of one question is going back to Mr. Spooner. Mr. Spooner made comments to the effect that along the Ashbourne boundary, all or some of the buildings, in his opinion, would be too tall, and therefore Ashbourne would be overlooked and it will be overbearing. I'm not, again, I apologise if I've missed it, but I'm not sure that anybody has spoken to that point, and I think it's important that Mr. Spooner's point is addressed. So I wonder if you could just give us a few words on that, please.
Sure, and I'll also come back to Councillor Beckett in relation to TRA2. The Highways Authority haven't objected to the application, so they're satisfied. I think they are aware of the issues along along Mangrove Road, and certainly with the proposed traffic calming measures at the southern part of the site, to the south of the site, they have addressed that. In relation to Mr. Spooner's comments about overlooking, the proposed development has a mix of 2 and 2.5 story or rooms in the roof dwellings. They are separated, they are set back from the boundary by at least 17 meters. I think because the residents of Ashbourne Gardens have had a vacant field next to them for a long time, I think that they will feel overlooked by the development, but the windows are offset from any adjoining windows. And because of the distance, it wasn't considered that there was any overlooking in terms of planning considerations.
Thank you. So I think that's a very fair answer. So your answer is that you understand Mr. Spooner's concerns, but from a planning point of view, the proposals meet with planning criteria.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, it's very, very good. As the debate's been continuing, I've just been making the odd note of things which have come up, and I think might need some wording to make sure they come to pass. So in absolutely no order of priority, just in terms of the way that I've made notes on my pad, a point has come up in relation to pedestrian footways, to use whatever may be the correct terminology on Councillor Andrews' advice. I think there's a mood that we want to take this opportunity to, if they can't be re-engineered, but to get the foliage pushed back so that they operate to their actual genuine breadth and width. I think one of the reasons that this discussion has taken quite a long time is because we are all very mindful of the points that have been made in relation to the green finger. I think everyone in this committee understands that the green fingers in Hertford are very important and very highly regarded for Hertford. And I think we're all very keen to make sure that we do the best we possibly can in relation to those green fingers. So the point came up that we would really like as much planting and landscaping as possible, specifically on the down slope, to try and moderate the visual impact of the pond. Then we have point 3 car charging. I think we discussed those, but I think the mood of the committee is that if this application is granted, we would want every dwelling, every car parking spot to have a electric car charging outlet. I think another mood I think I'm sensing is that if this application were to be passed, the speed management issues that you touched on, Fiona, probably about an hour ago now, I think we regard those as important, and we would want to see some form of condition to make those a requirement. And then I've got 2 more points that I've jotted down. One relates to the point made by Councillor Page, which is that what I'm going to probably incorrectly think of as the offset money for biodiversity, that if possible that gets spent locally in Hertford and certainly within East Hertfordshire. I think there's a mood to that effect. And then I think the final point that I've jotted down relates to public access. And I think we've had a balanced debate about the pros and cons of public access. And I sense, but I can be told that I'm wrong, that the formula that you suggested, which is that we arrive at a model which is the same as applies to the equivalent parcel of land for Ashbourne, be applied here in relation to this particular site. Now, I think just before you speak, Councillor Andrews has got a hand up, so I'll take Councillor Andrews first and then let you come back. So, Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I think everything's been very comprehensively covered this evening, but I do have a concern, one small smidgen of a concern around the effect this will have on the immediate neighbours, both to either side, when the development is actually underway. And I would encourage officers to be fairly firm in the scheme that they put in place to control the hours of the work on this site. I think the hours at the weekends could be controversial, but also bearing in mind we've had much discussion around the limitations of mangrove, and 25, 30 ton rigid and otherwise tippers going up and down that road on a regular basis, taking stuff in and bringing stuff out, will undoubtedly for a considerable period of time have a deleterious effect on people's lives. So I do hope that officers will bear that in mind and be fairly strict in the conditioning of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. If I could just again endorse that comment there. Mr. Spooner made a reference to earth movers, and I think he was concerned that for earth movers to come in and out of the site, that might mean, I don't know, that trees might find themselves disappearing. So there's a concern there, and Councillor Andrews has got a very valid concern. As we all know, Mangrove Road is quite a narrow road, and we must keep in mind very well that there is a school, a big school at one end of it. So there are real issues there to think of. Now, I'm getting very close to bringing this debate to a close, but Councillor Kemp has managed to beat the deadline and get his hand up. So, Ian, you have a comment.
Yeah, sorry, just following up on that point. Normally, normally I expect to see some sort of condition which details the construction hours, and I am struggling to find that. There seems to be I've just found condition 5, 6N07, which means, I'm afraid, nothing to me. Could we? What does that mean in terms of construction hours? Are there limitations on evening and weekend and morning work as usual? Because it sounds from Councillor Andrews' comments as if there may not be, or not as much as usual.
Would you like me to come back?
Yes, please, Fiona. Sorry, thank you.
Sorry. Excuse me. The construction hours are the standard construction hours. So I think it's 8 till 6 Monday to Friday and 8 till 1 on Saturday, and generally no working on Sunday and public holidays. But in addition to the construction hours, proposed condition number 3 has traffic management measures. So that's a construction traffic management statement or plan that would be required, that covers details of a number of issues for construction traffic, to help ensure that the roads are maintained in a suitable manner. So that covers that the construction traffic as well as the hours. And Chairman, would you like me to come back on the comments that you made just in relation to the footways? I think that we couldn't condition it as part of the application, but it might be something that could be included in the management plan of the site. So the management company, ensure that the front pathways are maintained free of vegetation, overhanging vegetation.
Yeah, I see.
And I think that's a requirement anyway.
Okay, I'll come back on that point in a second. Councillor Crystal, who went black on the screen for a moment there, has his hand up again. So again, is this a new hand or is it an old hand, Ben?
A new one. So just a very quick question, if that's okay.
Yep.
Thank you. It's about the school. You know, my son crosses that road every day, twice or more, and 1,000 other kids do, and all those little kids. Is there anything that can be done to control what goes past at 9 o'clock, or that kind of 8:30 till 9 and 3:30 till 4? Is there anything that can be done? Because it just fills me with horror thinking about large lorries going past at that pinch point when all the kids come out. It would really concern me.
Chairman, if I may, that's at condition 3, sub-item G.
Yeah.
Officers are ahead of us on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a fair point, Councillor Crystal. Thank you very much, David. All right. Where I'm sensing we are is I think we're ready to take a vote. And I've just jotted reminded us of that list of various points that have come up that may or may not require a little bit of wording in the final document that we arrive at here. Does it? I'm looking now at our legal officer, Paul. Does it work for us to move into a vote on the basis that we can rely upon officers to pick these this half a dozen or so points up and tidy up the wording after this meeting? Or do we have to do it slightly differently, which is maybe take a vote, and if who knows, depending on how the vote goes, but there might be some provision which is that further wording is subsequently agreed with the chairman of the committee or something like that. Paul, what would your advice be on that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just scrolling to the resolution, which does include some flexibility already. So it is to grant to the head of planning the power to finalize the detail of the legal agreement, the contributions to be contained therein, and conditions. So officers have heard what members' concerns are in relation to the conditions. So it seems to me that nothing further is needed.
Very good. Thank you very much, Paul. Very, very clear advice. Much appreciated. Okay, so I think we have now got to the point where, although David Andrews has got a hand up again.
Yeah, immediately after the vote, could I make a comment, Chairman? It's not pertinent now, but it will be immediately after we've concluded the vote on this. If you'd be kind enough to oblige me after then.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so I'd quite like to see people's faces. My screen has gone substantially black on me. Just let everybody come back to me. I've only got about half of you showing on my screen.
They're all there on mine, Chairman.
Have you got everybody showing on your screen, Peter?
Yes, I do. So if members want to propose something or any members.
Very good. Okay, so in that case, then I'm going to ask if there is a proposer and a seconder for this application.
Councillor Andrews' hand is up.
And I can see Ruth Buckmaster's hand up. So
is Councillor Andrews proposing?
I am.
And what are you proposing, please?
I'm proposing that we accept the recommendation.
Okay, that's seconded by...
I think Ruth Buckmaster is seconding. Is that
correct?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm seconding.
That's fine.
In that case, let's proceed to a vote then. All those in favour, please show a hand on the screen.
Please keep your hands up, members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hands are up.
And you can see all faces on your screen, can you, Peter?
Yes, there's only one hand that hasn't gone up. So 11 hands up at the minute.
Okay.
I can then go down now.
So, yeah, and in that case, then if we could just take hands down.
They are.
Again, my screen may have frozen. Have you got a live screen, Peter, that you're seeing?
Yeah, all the hands have gone down now, so you can take a vote against or abstention.
So the next question is, are there any votes against?
One.
Okay, and I think that's the maths, but since I can't see people's faces and Peter can, are there any abstentions?
No.
No, okay. So let's get this in front of me. So thank you, everybody. That means that following that debate, we have just agreed to grant permission in relation to application 320-1563 FUL, erection of 68 dwellings, including affordable housing and associated parking, landscaping, open space and ancillary works, with alterations to the existing access point on Mangrove Road and the creation of a new access on Mangrove Road at land west of Mangrove Road, Hertford. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. Now, we've been going for a bit. It's nearly 9:30. My sense is that the remaining items won't take us that long, but I'm just going to give people just a 5-minute break, just to stretch legs. So we'll reconvene this meeting at 9:35.
think we just need to find out whether Councillor Stowe and David Andrews are back, because they're on screen, but I can't see them. Right.
Okay, well, we've got 1 minute to go until we resume. We should resume at the time
you should know by now, Peter, I never sleep. I'm always on listen. I'm always on receive.
Okay, it's 9:35, so let's now continue. So we're now moving on to agenda item 6. This appears at page 63 of the pack.
Chairman, could I just remind you, I did ask if for your indulgence, just to make
beg your
sure.
pardon, yes, of course, yes, you do need to remind me. Do by all means.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If I could just go back to the previous item and the condition number 3, and sub-item G, timing of construction activities. Looking at that, it just occurred to me that we use the wording to avoid school pickup and drop-off times. Now, this is not really in tune with LTP4, where we're trying to encourage all manner of sustainable methods of getting to and from school. So could I encourage officers to look at that and maybe consider whether it's more appropriate to use a pedestrian, cycling, scooting, or non-vehicular arrival expression in that sort of situation? Small point, pedantic, I grant you, but we are reinforcing a point there, which I'm not sure we wish to do. Thank you.
That's fine. All right. Thanks, David, very much. Okay, so let's get back to, thank you. Let's get back to item 6.
Sorry, could I just make one quick addition on that? It simply refers to congestion and the like. I think it would be most helpful if that point were also to make a point about safety, because that is an overriding consideration there, and it's not mentioned at the moment.
Definitely fair point, yeah. I'm just looking at the screen. Is now, hang on my screen, I've got Sarah. Has Fiona left us now, Sarah?
She has, but I've made a note of the comments and I will feed that back to Fiona, so that's not a problem.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so at the third attempt, item 6, which commences at page 63, and I think, Sarah, you're presenting this, are you?
I am, yes. Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to do a very, very brief introduction. It's a short report. It relates to the public speaking arrangements for the Geilston area and the forthcoming planning applications. The report sets out the details of the proposed public speaking arrangements for the DMC meetings, which will determine the current planning applications for the Geilston area. As members, you know, I know you're aware that the committee back in May 2019 agreed public speaking arrangements for the strategic sites in the district plan, and that should be 6 minutes for public speakers and parish councils, and it's proposed to be consistent and extend the public speaking for 6 minutes for the Geilston area. And obviously tonight with Heart 5, the speaking arrangements we had in place were for 6 minutes. So it is simply proposing to extend the arrangements that we have for strategic sites to the Geilston area when those applications come forward to the committee. Thank you.
You're on mute, Chairman.
Bob, you're muted.
Chairman, you're on mute.
Apologies to everybody. Yeah, I've got 2 hands that have gone up straight away. That's Councillor Page and Councillor Kemp. If we can take them in that order, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a small point. Are we working hand in hand with the other 2 authorities on this? Will we have consistent public speaking arrangements for Harlow and Epping Forest and ourselves?
Thank you, Tim, very much. Ian?
Thank you, Chair. I agree entirely with the 6-minute period and so on. An additional point that's in that report, however, is what happens where you've got multiple parish councils involved, and the suggestion that multiple councils should be combined so they all speak together for a total of 6 minutes. That seems very sensible to me. But I just wanted clarification as to whether that will only apply where an application for a given area falls in more than one parish council area. For example, on something like the Stort River crossings, one would think they would only fall into a single parish council area.
Thank you very much, Ian, as well. I'm not seeing any more hands, so Sarah, if you could respond, please.
Yeah, I'll pick up Councillor Page's point first. The applications that will be coming to DMC hopefully in June only fall within East Herts and Harlow. Obviously, we're part of the Garden Town and work in partnership with the other authorities, and we're discussing arrangements with Harlow and how it works between us. And we have obviously shared with Harlow that we have specific speaking arrangements for our strategic sites, and we will be finalising arrangements with them over the coming weeks as we prepare to bring the applications to committee. It may be they decide to stick with their current speaking arrangements, but we are certainly, with this report, being consistent with our specific arrangements for our strategic sites.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, don't see any more hands. I shall therefore...
Sorry, could I request a response to my question?
Yeah, I didn't see your hand, Ian. I'm sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I was just going to come back to you, Councillor Kemp. Can you just explain that again about the parish councils?
Certainly, yes. As far as I can see from the report, you're suggesting a 6-minute total time period for parish councils. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just wanted clarification that if it was, say, if the planning application related to an area that's spread across 2 or 3 parish councils, in that case, they would be required to share the 6 minutes. But if it fell just in a single area, then it would be just that parish council
That's
involved, right, and just speaking, and then they would be speaking alone for those 6 minutes.
Yeah, it has to fall within that parish council area.
Fine, thanks. Cheers.
Yeah, good. Okay, sorry about that, Ian. I should make sure you got that answer there. So, okay, last look at the screen. I'm not seeing any hands. This feels like an auction. I can't see any more hands going up. So I shall now call for a proposer and a seconder, please.
Councillor Beckett.
Thank you very much,
Councillor Kemp.
and Councillor Kemp. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. The recommendation is on page 63, which is that revised arrangements of public speaking in relation to the Gilston area planning applications as set out in this report be agreed. All those in favour, please show a hand to the screen.
I think that's all hands there, Chairman. Yes.
You happy? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that's carried. And then that leaves us simply with one more item, I think, on the agenda, which is item 7, items for reporting and noting.
Just the statistic figures.
Yeah, sure. It's just the stats. This begins at page 69, and that's all there is to it. So I take it we're noting that report. Very good. In which case, at 9:43, we have covered the ground, and I'm pleased to say this meeting is concluded. Thank you all, as usual, very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.